Osama bin Laden was the leader of Al-Qaeda and the face behind the 9/11 attacks, becoming the world's most wanted man. He evaded the largest manhunt for a decade using his network. From billionaire to global terrorism, he became a figure of terror and mystery. He belonged to a wealthy family and had a degree in civil engineering. His father became a billionaire by building the Saudi Bin Laden Group into one of the largest construction firms in Saudi Arabia at the time. Osama later used much of his inheritance to support his purpose and network, especially in Afghanistan. He also used his civil engineering expertise to construct shelters, roads, and tunnels for the Mujahideen during their fight against the Soviet Union.
He was the 17th of more than 50 children of a self-made billionaire.
Osama was more religious than the rest of us. He did not like to listen to music or to watch TV.
Most of his brothers were educated abroad, but Osama stayed in Saudi Arabia. Then, in 1979, Soviet troops invaded Afghanistan, and Osama bin Laden found his calling, helping the Afghans fight their jihad, holy war, against the communists. First, he raised money, used expertise gained from the family's construction business. Then, he took up arms.
He hated the United States mainly for three reasons. He despised the U.S. military presence in Saudi Arabia, seeing it as an invasion of sacred Islamic land. He was angered by U.S. support for Israel, which he saw as oppression of Palestinians, and he believed American culture was corrupting Islamic values and traditions.
You have declared a jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
The U.S. government has committed acts that are extremely unjust, hideous, and criminal through its support of the Israeli occupation of Palestine. And we believe the U.S. is directly responsible for those killed in Palestine, Lebanon, and Iraq. Due to its subordination to the Jews, the arrogance of the United States regime has reached the point that they occupied Arabia, the holiest place of the Muslims, who are more than 1 billion people in the world today. For this and other acts of aggression and injustice, we have declared jihad against the U.S.
Is the jihad directed against the U.S. government? Or United States troops in Arabia? What about U.S. civilians in Arabia or the people of the United States?
We have focused our declaration of jihad on striking at the U.S. soldiers inside Arabia, the country of the two holy places, Mecca and Medina. In our religion, it is not permissible for any non-Muslim to stay in Arabia. Therefore, even though American civilians are not targeted in our plan, they must leave. We do not guarantee their safety.
During the 1980s, the CIA indirectly supported bin Laden by funding and arming the Mujahideen against the Soviet Union. The CIA provided training and weapons to fighters, including groups bin Laden was connected with. Though they shared only a temporary alignment, U.S. resources strengthened his network.
In 1978, the April Revolution took place in Afghanistan, which was a coup by the Communist People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan. President Muhammad Duad Khan was killed in the process, and the chaos continued as Afghanistan was in shambles. The Soviets invaded the country and began what is called the Soviet-Afghan War, which lasted for almost an entire decade. The Soviets deployed over 620,000 soldiers during the 9-year-long invasion and rampaged throughout Afghanistan. What's interesting is that it wasn't a war between the Soviet Union and Afghanistan. In reality, the Soviets helped the new pro-communistic government of Afghanistan to fight against anti-communist jihadists that opposed the new rule. There were several different jihadist groups fighting guerrilla warfare against several-fold larger Soviet-Afghan army. One of the main groups was called the Afghan Services Bureau, founded by none other than Osama Bin Laden. The Soviet-Afghan War took a giant toll on Afghanistan, as at least 90,000 jihadists died. But most importantly, the lives of millions of Afghans were destroyed. Some historians say that over 2 million Afghanistan citizens died during the war, and as many as 5 million fled the country and became refugees. Dan Rather, an American journalist, went as far as to say that the Soviets performed a genocide of the Afghan people, and even compared the Soviet Union to the Third Reich. After 9 years and 1 month of war, the jihadist insurgency proved itself to be too strong for the Soviets to beat, and the Soviet Union withdrew their troops on February 15, 1989. In 2004, BBC published an article about the origins of Al-Qaeda and stated that during the anti-Soviet war, Bin Laden and his fighters received American and Saudi funding. Some analysts believe Bin Laden himself had security training from the CIA. Now, that's just one article by BBC, so it doesn't mean that much, right?
After the Afghan-Soviet War, Bin Laden used his fighters and resources to form Al-Qaeda in 1988. His goal was to unite and lead a global jihadist movement. He focused on overthrowing secular Muslim governments and attacking Western targets, especially the United States. He believed violent jihad was necessary to restore an Islamic caliphate.
Bin Laden founded Al-Qaeda, the base, and turned toward a global jihad. The new enemy was America, which ironically had funded the Afghan resistance against the Soviets. When Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1990, Bin Laden went to the Saudi royal family and offered his followers to defend the holy sites of Mecca and Medina. Instead, the Saudis invited in U.S. troops.
When U.S. troops were placed in Saudi Arabia as a result of Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait, that was a kind of turning point for Osama.
Bin Laden was kicked out of Saudi Arabia, spent several years in Sudan, where he started training camps for Al-Qaeda. He was booted out of there and fled to Afghanistan, where in 1997 he did an interview with CNN, making it clear he was targeting the U.S. unless it got its troops out of Saudi Arabia.
We have focused declaration of jihad on striking at the U.S. soldiers inside Arabia, the country of the two holy places, Mecca and Medina.
A year later, Bin Laden publicly declared war on the U.S. He wanted it to end its support for Israel, its boycott of Iraq, and to get out of Saudi Arabia.
Bin Laden was married to at least 5 women and fathered around 20 children. His marriages were often arranged for strategic alliances within his network. 2 of his wives held PhDs, showing that even highly educated women resonated with his message.
Bin Laden doesn't live all by himself in the compound. He has gathered part of his family here.
He always advocated that it's good custom for Muslims to have 4 wives, which corresponds to common practice, at least among conservative Muslims in Saudi Arabia. Marrying 2, 3, or 4 women is nothing special if the financial means are there.
2, 3 oder 4 Frauen zu heiraten. 2 of his 4 wives are with him in Abbottabad. 2 of his younger children are even born here. Living in a quasi-conspiracy, this can become a real challenge, as Bin Laden writes in one of his letters.
One of the most important security issues in cities is controlling children by not getting out of the house except for extreme necessity like medical care, and that they do not get to the yard of the house without an adult who will control the volume of their voices.
On the compound there were a dozen kids, Bin Laden's kids, and then also grandkids.
Only very few photos of these younger children exist.
The 2 educated wives, there was sort of almost like a classroom, and they would teach them, and then Bin Laden would come and sort of instruct them about various things.
The patriarch visits the classroom almost every day. He shows interest in his children's progress.
Bin Laden was very nice to his kids and his family. I mean, people... It's not unusual that people who conduct acts of mass murder
have, at least one part of them that is sort of nice. And Bin Laden was certainly a committed father. He would read poetry to his kids. He would kind of instruct them on the Quran.
Letters written by his grown children, who can't be with him, speak of affection toward their father. "We constantly yearn for you and delight in hearing your voice messages," writes one of his daughters. His son Hamza lets him know, "My beloved father, I cannot imagine the length of this bitter separation. My eyes still remember that last day they saw you." Bin Laden's answer is equally affectionate.
By God, I miss you so much. The only thing we're lacking is getting together with you.
In 2011, the CIA tracked a trusted bin Laden courier to a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. After confirming his presence, U.S. Navy SEALs launched a covert raid on May 2nd. Bin Laden was killed in the operation and later identified through DNA testing and facial recognition.
Sitting with several members of their cabinet and U.S. military officials in the Situation Room on May 1, 2011. The photo documented the reactions of top government officials watching the capture of Osama bin Laden. What was happening on the other side of that image was reportedly live video footage of SEAL Team 6 carrying out the covert mission. The elite unit was tasked with either capturing or killing the mastermind behind the 9/11 terrorist attacks in his compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. It was a success. Some hours after that photo was taken, Obama turned to Americans in a special televised late-night speech to announce the death of bin Laden on May 2nd.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
The news was a victory for the U.S., which had finally caught and killed the wanted terrorist a decade after the devastating attacks. But later that day, many wondered how it was planned and how the U.S. military located bin Laden almost 10 years after he became public enemy number 1. The event was famously dramatized in the fictional movie Zero Dark 30. While it was members of the special military group that performed the operation that killed Osama bin Laden, it was American intelligence officials who reportedly led them to his location. The Saudi-born terrorist was killed in Pakistan in the early morning hours of May 2, 2011. After being on the run for so long, it was believed that bin Laden was hiding in some undisclosed area. In actuality, he was brazenly living in the Pakistani city of Abbottabad for the last 5 years of his life. Reportedly, the Central Intelligence Agency had learned this the year before when they tracked a member of bin Laden's radical terrorist group Al-Qaeda visiting a large and guarded structure. In the days after closely watching the associate at the location, they presumed that this large compound, which stood out compared to other residences, was a destination of some importance. The compound that bin Laden was living in was 3 floors tall. Each floor had several rooms, and in total, the house had 9 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, and 2 kitchens. The 3rd floor is where bin Laden lived and spent the majority of his time, reportedly restricting himself to just 2 rooms. With continued monitoring of the house, the CIA is said to have determined that members of bin Laden's family were living there. The home's occupants were bin Laden, several of his wives, children, and grandchildren, as well as his bodyguards and their wives and children. CIA Director Leon Panetta would later say that the agency had to believe all of their initial assumptions about bin Laden's possible whereabouts were wrong before moving forward with the lead that he was actually in Abbottabad. Despite not having concrete proof that bin Laden himself was at the location, President Obama was confident in the hunch and approved the mission to capture or kill. In late April 2011, after 8 months of secretly organizing, SEAL Team 6 had the authorization, and the mission was officially active when the team took off from a U.S. military base in Afghanistan en route to Abbottabad. In a few hours, Osama bin Laden, America's most wanted terrorist, was dead. Including bin Laden, the total number of casualties was 4 men and 1 woman per CNN. 2 other women were wounded. One of bin Laden's sons was killed. The other men killed were bodyguards for the terrorist leader. In the aftermath of the raid, American and Pakistani officials questioned 3 wives and approximately 6 children of the slain Al-Qaeda leader per ABC News. While earlier intel couldn't completely say for certain that the tall bearded man they killed on the 3rd floor of the compound was actually bin Laden, a DNA test would confirm it was. A statement from Al-Qaeda that their leader was dead.
To prevent his grave from becoming a shrine, U.S. officials buried him at sea. His body was washed, wrapped in white cloth, and buried within 24 hours in line with Islamic customs. His remains were placed in a weighted bag and released into the Arabian Sea from the USS Carl Vinson.
It was a joint decision. We thought it was important to think through ahead of time how we would dispose of the body if he were killed in the compound. And I think that what we tried to do was consulting with experts in Islamic law and ritual to find something that was appropriate, that was respectful of the body, Frankly, we took more care on this than obviously Bin Laden took when he killed 3,000 people. He didn't have much regard for how they were treated and desecrated. But that, again, is something that makes us different. And I think we handled it appropriately.
But many believe his death was staged. Conspiracy theories claim the lack of photos and witnesses to the burial raise doubts about the official account. Inconsistencies in reports have fueled speculation that the full truth about Bin Laden's death has never been revealed.
In Pakistan, many people are still questioning whether Osama bin Laden was even killed. President Obama's decision not to release a photo has helped to fuel conspiracy theories. But the Pakistani government has no doubts bin Laden is dead.
Of anger and humiliation here is building, and at the same time there's a widespread belief that Osama bin Laden wasn't killed in Abbottabad.
But then Osama bin Laden was here.
Yeah, we are not sure. He was here because Pakistani says, American says he was staying here from last 1 year. So why didn't they kill him?
One of Pakistan's most respected clerics, Abdul Aziz Hanif, says it's all a sham.
We believe there was no person called Osama bin Laden there. This was done to improve the USA's declining image, a drama in the name of Osama.
There's no doubt the raid took place. The latest details released by the US military say bin Laden was moving towards weapons in his room when they killed him. What is agreed here is that this was an affront to the nation's sovereignty by a supposed ally.
Osama bin Laden's journey from billionaire heir to the world's most wanted terrorist left a mark on history that can never be erased. His life was filled with contradictions, power, and destruction. And even in death, his story remains surrounded by mystery. What do you think? Was the world told the full truth about Osama bin Laden? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more untold stories from history.